This week's episode is sponsored by the Brilliant Futures Institute.
You will still be needed. Sometimes people feel like, well, if I give things out, what am I going to do? You need to lead. You need to grow your business. You need to be the visionary of your business. You need to be the master communicator of your business. As a CEO, it's your responsibility to be the person who grows that business and have the vision that people will want to follow.
Welcome to the Preeminence Podcast.
You cannot be a courageous leader if you're not vulnerable.
Your legacy is every life you've touched.
The only thing that changes our life long term is when we raise our standards.
Now is the time to take risk.
The way it's always been done isn't necessarily the way it should be done.
What is your dream? What do you think 2050, 2100 is going to look like?
The most incredible sort of mystery, I think, is now the question of what comes next.
Stay hungry, stay foolish.
Welcome to the Preeminence Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew J. Peters. Visit preeminence.tv to learn more about how to create a preeminent presence for your business, organization, or personal brand. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or just ask Alexa to play the Preeminence Podcast.
Today, we're talking about systems. I love systems because it was a way for me to not just use my time more efficiently, but more effectively. And so today the title is More Freedom with Simple Systems, getting your unconscious success systems out of your head and onto a digital medium. Now, if it's digitized, it's out of your head, you're able to translate it to people, you're able to communicate it to people much more clearly. So today we're going to cover breaking down your day and your tasks, determining what is worth systematizing, creating your simple systems, and handing your systems off to others. If you don't hand them off, and it just sits in the manual or sits on your hard drive, it does no good. And we're going to get into why I found that systems were so important. If you were to see the picture here, it's a picture of a bicycle kind of thrown on the highway here. And that is a story that really began my journey on systems. I was with my family and we were at a farmer's market, and I said, hey, you know what? I'll meet you down at Whole Foods. They were in the car. I had my bike. I was just going to bike down and meet them. We were downtown Madison, Wisconsin, riding along the sidewalk. And I thought it was going to be cool and I'm going to hop over the curb here and then go into the bike lane from the sidewalk. And as I did that, my fender came off and lodged in my wheel, and my hands were on the handlebars and went like this over the handlebars and hit my face, smashed my face right on the road. And I got up and I was a little shaken up. I was a little discombobulated, and so I picked up my bike and I saw all these cars were stopping, people were gawking at me, and I just picked up my bike and people ran up to me and said, you're okay? I was like, oh yeah, I'm fine. And then my family drove up and they're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? They came and they said, we need to take you to the hospital. I said, no, I'm fine. And then so this guy said, just give me your address, I'll take your bike back to your house. And so he did. And my family took me to the hospital, and I'd never really been in an emergency room for anything. And I put down the visor and I looked at myself in the mirror and I saw that I had like this big gash here and I'd bitten through my lip, and I just started in 2011, this was in 2012, I just started getting on video. I was doing video all the time. As a matter of fact, I started a 30-day video challenge and I was on day like 8 or 9. And I realized, I was thinking, that ends my career on video. I'll be disfigured or whatever it was. And as we were driving there, my kids were like really scared because they didn't know, they'd never seen their dad hurt. And so we're driving there, I was thinking, what if when I hit like that, I became paralyzed? Or what if I didn't make it? What would be left of my legacy? What would there be left? And I realized what I'd have is what I taught my kids, the clients and customers that I had then, that I'd served partially, that I didn't finish the work with them because I was in process of doing work with them. Everything would have stopped. And what would have been my legacy really is an insurance policy, a life insurance policy. And so when we're talking about systems, they're near and dear to me because I realized my business equaled me. There was no separation. I was a solopreneur. Everything was inside my head. And it wasn't until I decided I was going to hire people, let them do what they're great at, and let me focus on what I need to do in leading my company. So if I were to ask you, what does your average day look like? We do a lot of the same things. We say, well, every day is a little different. Every day we're doing, I've got this type of meeting, or I have this class on this day, or I'm meeting these clients on this day, so it's not the same every day. But if we take it back to the very beginning of your day, so you get up out of bed, you get your clothes on, you take a shower, you get into the car, you eat your breakfast, you brush your teeth. That's not a success system, is it? That's all out of order. But every day you have this routine, this ritual you go through. That's a system of success that's gotten you this far in life. And you do that with your business, you do that with your family, you do systems all the time. You're just unconscious. And what I want to do is bring those unconscious success systems out of your head and into a digital medium, because your success systems are your assets. They're your legacy. Your grandma's recipe for apple pie. That's a legacy of hers. That was one of her systems. If she had it on a card and you were able to look through that recipe and duplicate what she did and make that apple pie taste the same, she successfully communicated that success system to you. This is why one of the reasons is, you need to duplicate yourself. Decentralize your knowledge. Your systems are not just for you, they're for your family, they're for your team, they're for your clients. So if we think, well, I have enough time, I don't really need to free up my time, I've got enough time to do what I want. Well, it's like, what about your family? When I was in that bike accident, if I wouldn't have made it, if I would have been paralyzed, I would have left no assets for my family to continue on. They would have been doing nothing for me. So this is something to think about. If you're a coach or you're a mentor or a trainer or something, how can you duplicate yourself online? How can you duplicate your systems to hire people to do some of the things that you do? You may do them well, but it's not what your gift is. You need to focus on your gift. And at the end of this, you're going to see I have 3 or 4 systems I'm going to break down for you so you can see how you can use these. Start super simple, and you can actually just start doing it today. Your business cannot grow past you without communicating your knowledge to the people on your team and the people around you. If it's just in your head saying, no, move, I got it, I'll figure this out. Like when we're setting up here, there's times where I'm wanting to set up the cameras and stuff. That's not my job anymore. That's not my job, and I'm trying to do somebody else's job. That's not my place. So your systems are going to say, I'm going to teach someone to do what I used to do, and they're going to be proficient at it, and they're going to improve on it their way. That's where we're going to get to. Anything I do more than once, I'm always thinking about how can I make this into a system. Any business I'm starting, and I have several startups right now, I'm always looking at setting up the system for it. How can we, okay, this worked, let's write that all out. Now I can hand that to somebody else. All right? This is duplicating my time. It's also creating jobs. If I were just to keep it all to myself, there's just one job, that's me. I got the job for myself, but as soon as I can outsource myself to other people, that's going to allow them to now prosper. That's going to allow them to now use their gifts. Okay, so it's kind of a selfish thing to keep all of that knowledge to ourselves. But if you're going to do something more than once, if you have a repetitive task, figure out what it is you're doing, write it down, and now that becomes an asset. Always observe your outcomes and always improve. We're in a constant state of improving. It's not something, I wrote this system down once, now it's done. If you do that, you're going to be outdated. You're going to fall behind your competition. You're going to fall behind people who are your peers doing what you do. You need to always keep updating it, always improving upon it. And that really leads me to the principle called Kaizen. Kaizen is change and better. It's always improving. Kaizen is also known as continuous improvement. It's a long-term approach. If you're practicing Kaizen, it's like, this is great. How are we doing this now? How can we make it even better next time? So like when we look at these videos, when we get feedback from people that are on the live stream, they're saying, this is great, we can't hear you very well. Okay, that's something we can improve on. or it started late. That's something I can improve on. We're always looking at how can we improve what it is we're doing. And if you're in that state, you're always in a constant state of evolution instead of this entropy of always kind of like, I'm current with last week or last month or last year. You're always getting better because you're focusing on it. The other thing I want to say is about busy work. I read a book by Tim Ferriss, and one of the quotes he had in there is, busyness is another form of laziness. So if you think, I'm busy, I'm always doing something. Now that's great if you're expanding, you're growing, and you're prospering, you're helping other people prosper, but if that busyness is doing the same thing over and over, and it can be something that you can hand off to someone else to practice their excellence, then that's really something you're taking away from them. If you think of it that way, it becomes easier to have people work with you. And with Brilliant Futures, what we need to do is replicate all the good that's in us. How do we replicate our success? How do we replicate the brilliance that we're doing right now? How do we get that out to even more people? And one of the ways you start systems the way I did is I asked a question. And this is a really powerful question that I was in a mastermind, and it was a 3-day mastermind. The first day, he had one question for us all to answer for the entire day. How can I blank without blank? How do I get that thing that I want without doing that thing that I don't want? I don't want to do that. So you could fill in those blanks. If you have some paper or in a pencil, or you type this out, write this out. How can I blank? How can I get that thing that I want without blank? And that is really, you keep that in your mind. That process is going to start giving you answers. It's an open-ended question that your mind's going to always look for a better solution to. How can I blank without blank? And then how can I make this even more effective than it already is? You have to pay tribute to what you've already created. You don't want to downplay what you've already created. You've created success. How can I make it better than it already is? All right, so it's in your language how you're framing the fact that you've already done some of the work. You already have some results. How can I make it even better? Now, there's a book that came out, I think 2009, 2010, by Tim Ferriss. It's called The 4-Hour Work Week. And when I read that, I was like, this is the 4-day work week, or the 4-hour work day? I was thinking like you're cutting things in half. No, it's the 4-hour work week. I thought, when I first understood it, I was like, that's impossible. But when I started going through it, I realized, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff that I'm doing that doesn't need to be done. There's things that I have as goals that 80% of what I'm doing is not going to get me there. It's just busy work. And there's other things you can do to systematize your life so you're running by a calendar, you're making sure you're checking things off, and you're always moving forward. And it's a great book, The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. I highly recommend it. And about 1.5 years later, I wrote a book, and you can see the covers look very similar. That's on purpose. It's called Don't Own, Don't Rent, Live Well. Now, I was in debt, and I was trying to figure out how could we get out of debt. And we decided to become resident managers of a 34-unit apartment complex. Doing that allowed us to not pay any rent, and all the money we had from our full-time jobs went to pay off all of our debt. Now, in the book, and this is not something I'm promoting now, I'm just talking about the systems in here I learned from the 4-Hour Work Week, and one of the things is neglecting the things you don't need to do. And I realized if we're going to be a resident manager just like everybody else, we'd be answering every phone call, we'd be meeting people whenever it's convenient for them, I would be running around with a big chain of keys, and I'd be helping everybody out all the time. So what I did was I set up systems for everything. And we were there for 7 years, and in those 7 years we had it full all the time. We filled it up in 2 weekends, so 34 units. We filled it up in 2 weekends, which was very rare to have something like that. And I worked 1.5 hours a week because of the systems we created. We realized we could automate a lot of things, and it just worked. So that's where I started. And is the 4-hour work week realistic? I'll say yes, it is, but it can be really boring. I got to a point where I had created a bunch of systems, and you'll see some of them here. I created systems where all these things I thought I had to do, I had created systems for that were either automated by machine or just lines of code, or I had someone else going through my system And then there was a point when I finished it, I handed it off to my project manager, I realized, what do I do now? And so I started working on a screenplay, I started recording music again, and I really got into my passions. And one of the things I wish I would have done differently is I wish I would have kept growing my business. Instead, I went into a coast mode. And that's something you want to really think about is as you hand these things off, how can you still be effective and lead in your business? How can you keep it growing even though you've handed these things off? Because it's a slippery slope when you think, oh, I don't have to do this, I don't have to do that, and then you just start playing. There's a big difference between being efficient and being effective. We can automate everything. We can over-automate everything so that it's really high-tech, but there's no high-touch, and there's really low customer experience with your customer service. We think that customers serve us. All right, that's where you see all these automations where you think that you're the customer, you're supposed to serve us. It's customer service. How can you stay in service of your clients and just make better use of your time? And effective is the time that you use. If you do work for 2 hours a day or 3 hours a day, you know, what are you doing with that? There's the Pareto principle, Parkinson's law. And Parkinson's law is basically saying that any task will expand to the amount of time you give it. If you have to write a sales email and you have the whole day, you have 8 hours, you'll take 5 or 6 or 7, 8 hours you'll fill the time because that's your one thing you need to do. But if you are given a half hour or 20 minutes saying you need to send this out like right now, you'll figure out how to do it. And so that Parkinson's law says, how can I make this most effective use of my time? Because efficiency is I can be really good and really fast at something that doesn't matter. And I see that all over the place. People are thinking so short term that the things that they're working on today are not building anything. There's no legacy there. It's just I'm making a sale. Or I'm doing this thing for this week. Or a lot of it has to do with sales goals for the month or sales goals for this quarter. But they're not really thinking legacy. Because legacy isn't exciting to a lot of people. But it's the smart thing. So when you're effective, you're thinking about the long-term approach. And like I said, 80% of what you're doing right now, I can almost guarantee is not getting you the result that you want. But 20% of it is. So if you could put 80% of your time into the 20% of what is effective, that's where you're going to see real growth. Now, one of the big questions is, does it need to be systematized? You need to get lean and get rid of a lot of things you're doing. And the next step here is getting rid of the clutter. There's a lot of clutter in your life. There's a lot of distractions. You could literally create a list of all the things that you feel are distractions, like emails. Emails you don't want to answer, or phone calls, answering the phone. I don't know who this person is, should I pick it up? Or distractions, like, I need an hour of quiet time to get through these things, and then I like to communicate with other people, and I like to have that sense of community, but I need an hour or 2 hours of just silence, where there's no distractions, there's no interruptions. Now, this is a great tool. I tell people all the time, there's a tool called unroll.me. Instead of .com, it's .me. Unroll will basically, you sign into your email and they'll say, here are all the emails you're getting from autoresponders. You may have signed up for a newsletter. You may have bought a software and they're just sending you stuff you don't want anymore. You'll get to see all of them listed there, and you can delete, and it'll take care of that for you so you never see them again. And then learn the power of no. There's a famous book called The Power of Now. The power of no is when you realize these things are not going to help you get to what it is you want to create. A lot of times there's an obligation, feeling like, oh, they're a friend, I should say yes, or I can do that to that client. It's like, that's not really what I want to do. That's not really what my passion is, but I can do it, so I'll just do that for them. Learn the power of no. That'll save you so much time. As far as getting time freedom, the power of no is one of the biggest ones. So here are crucial questions to ask when you're looking at turning something into a system. Number one, the biggest one is, does it even need to be done? The fact that you're going through this, you're now assessing, I'm doing this every day. Is this something that's actually getting us any results? Is this something going to take us closer to what we want? If it's a no, erase it, eliminate it. You don't need it in your life. Does it need to be done? Yes. If it's a yes, you go on to the next one. Do I need to do it? the more you do systems, the more you're going to realize you don't need to do any of it. Even the things you think, like, but no one else in the world can do what I do. I'll show you in here how you can even get through that. So do I need to do it? Yes. Can you make a system so you just remember your steps, template things out? You can do that, and I'll show you some templates a little bit later. If you don't need to do it, does a human need to do it? I was sending out a lot of emails, and I realized, you know what? A human doesn't need to do that. I can just create the template and have them send out and triggered when something happens. So does a human need to do it? Yes or no? Can I set up the automation myself, or what skills do I need to hire? We're not going to get into hiring now, but that's the next step in this is I've created the systems. Now who do I hand it off to? What software do I use to automate this? So I'm just going to go through this quickly here. Creating your next systems. Write down the steps as you work. And this is, if you think logically, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to write it out. And Tony Robbins uses this example of a famous chef. He's making a chocolate cake, and he says, I don't know how to make this chocolate cake. It's an award-winning cake. He says, okay, go ahead and start making it. So he starts making. He says, stop. What is that? That's flour. How much flour is that? It's 2 cups. All right, 2 cups of flour. Keep going. He does this thing, and he puts in milk. Stop. How much milk is that? He's just doing it unconsciously competent. He's done this 1,000 times, 5,000 times. You have to ask Gordon Ramsay to make you a souffle. He's not coming up with a recipe. It's like this. He can probably make it in 3 minutes. Now, for me to make a souffle like him, I need to watch it and see what he's adding exact amounts. Even if it's a pinch, that pinch is the same probably every time he does it. All right, so that's your proficiency from the perspective of you doing this for years. How do you capture that? So write down those steps as you work. And now you got to go through and follow your steps. You can't do anything else but follow your steps. If you go outside of that, you need to add it to your steps, because when you hand it off, they're going to have that missing piece. Now, do you get the same results you did by strictly following your own steps, or do you get something different? If it's something different, you need to fix it. Is there anything missing, or is there anything you need to add? Is there anything you can cut out or combine? How can you make this more succinct? And then implement your process. You implement it by handing it off. Now, I'm doing a variation that I found that works better for me. There's like a 4-step, and I turn this into more steps, but you'll understand why. So the first step is when you hand it off to somebody is, I do it and I document it. We just covered that. Then I execute on that document and I check it. Do I still get the same results? Now this is where you are duplicating yourself. I'm going to teach you how to do it, and you watch me do that. The next one is you do it and I watch you do that. After that is you do it, I'm going to leave it to you doing it on your own, and you bring it back to me. Or for instance, like I have someone create an email from a template. That's great. Send that email to me first as a test. Let me look over it, make sure it's good. Let's do that 3 or 4 times. After I see you've done it, I didn't have to edit anything 3 or 4 times. We're going to just eliminate that step. You don't need to send it to me anymore. Just send it out. And then the next step is when they teach somebody and that other person watches. Why? Because that person is doing that thing. We always want to be bringing people up. Get them onto the next bigger and better thing that they can do. Always push them to their level of ability. Everybody that has a position, a job, they're always at their highest level of incompetence. If they're more competent, they'd be in the next position. But we're always pushing that ceiling. Don't keep people down saying, well, you're just going to do this template. That's all you're going to do. If they're really a part of your organization, keep bringing them up. And then they improve, and they document it, and they go back to step 2 where they are going through this process themselves. As duplication, duplication. All this time, you've created a job. You've allowed someone to do something they're proficient at. You've helped them own that. Now they're teaching it. They're duplicating themselves. You can now give them different, bigger, better tasks. And there's lots of different types of systems. I'm going to point out a couple of them. One of the biggest ones is, if this, then that. If this happens, then do this. My parents have a child care center they've had since 1972. They have manuals, operations manuals. When this happens, This is how we handle it. And you can do that with a lot of your processes, but if you don't have that written out, every time it's like, I got to check with so-and-so. That it adds time, it adds confusion. So when you have these things, when you have a employee manual written out, then people know how they're supposed to go about business. Automation, your website, online forms, voicemail, email, autoresponders. Zapier is another one where you can connect different apps together. So when one app has information, it sends it to the other app, and there's a communication between apps. That sounds a little confusing, doesn't it? But here's the thing. You can start out as simple as having someone clean your house, having your groceries automatically sent to your house. We don't have to get really detailed, but what I want you to start thinking about is the things that I think that I have to do all the time may be what's holding you back. What if there's things that you said, okay, I'm done doing that, I'm going to hand this off to somebody else? Checklists. One of the things that you can do when you have a proficiency in something and you hand it off to someone, but they're not going to do it the same as me. They're not going to have the same standards of quality. That's when a checklist comes in. Did you do this? Did you make sure you tested this? Did you use this template? Did you check with so-and-so? All these different things that you think that you have to do, when you start writing out how you do them, that's where you're going to see, okay, I'm actually not needed for this. And then we can get into project management software, which is when you really go, the full scale. Email autoresponders, I'll show you some of those as well. Now I'm going to close with these few here, but here's a challenge. I just was telling somebody the other day that you need to be posting to social media, you need to be posting to your blog, you need to be doing that regularly, but it just takes so much time. How can I post more blog posts and social media and stay active and stay relevant without having to spend 2 or 3 hours a day or a week doing this? How do I do that? How many of you have heard of Google Drive, Google Documents? Everybody has heard of it by now. But if you're using it, this is where you can really duplicate yourself. So if we talk about Connect Bradenton here, one of the things we have is we have events like this every week. And we also have other events that come in. But we need to let the public know that there are events coming up. So one of the things we have is a template. How do we announce an event? And how do we promote it? If we look at the promotion here, we set up the event, open a Google Doc with Connect Bradenton event ads in that folder, open the file titled event ad template, and save as. Now you're creating another document. Create the title and subtitle. You see how granular this is? It's step by step, because I realize if I just said create a Google Doc and put the document in there, that's so open-ended, I don't know, I can do it 5, 10, 20 different ways. I want it done one way. And when they figure out a way to do it better, then we do that. And then for the actual ad, this one here, I'll explain to people that are watching live here, is that we have a document. It's basically all dummy text saying everything that's in blue, delete that. That's just for you to know. And then the things that are in red, that's what you change. It's the same every time. So when I have an event coming up next Thursday, it's the same document. I save as the new event title, and I just go through and change all that. When I'm done with that, I can share that document with someone who is going to take it from there. So if you have an as-needed assistant or you're outsourcing something, you add them in that folder, and then you just tag them saying, hey, would you please post this by noon on Monday? Thank you. They're going to get an email, and that email is going to say, this is going to be the same thing, and they can open up that document, and they can take it from there. You can get them into your Facebook, you can make them a manager of your page, you can get them into your blog not as an admin, but as a contributor or as an editor. You know what I'm saying? So you don't feel like you have to do it all. If you're the expert, stay doing your one thing, which is doing your work and then communicating what your work is. You can do it in one place in the Google document, and that will take care of it. So don't feel like you have to do everything all the time. You don't have to do it all alone. Here's another challenge. When I bring a new client on, I have a lot of back and forth communications via email. And there's a lot of customer service messages. I forgot my password. When are we meeting? All those different things. Now, This was the first. This is the first one that I set up. It was after hearing one of my mentors. I was on a phone call with him, and he just said it in passing. It wasn't even what the group was about, but he said, all of my businesses use systems, and most of those systems require none of my time. Little to none of my time. And he just kept on going. I was like, whoa, what did you say? And he said, well, yeah, I set up systems for everything. He's like an engineer and a programmer. So he said, like, why would I do that twice? Why do I do it 5 times? I just set up the program, and the program takes care of it. And so I see him traveling around the world he's got 5 kids. They go all over the world. It's incredible what he's done. Is he's provided jobs, but he also has the automation. He's just working smart. But when I heard it was like within the next 3 or 4 days, it took me that while to set this up. I set up a system of emails that said when someone buys, when this happens, they get this email. And then a day later, 2 days later, they get this next email. And those emails had all the information they needed, had all the customer service questions answered for them. So if you were to see this here, this is in Aweber. Aweber is an email program, something like a MailChimp people know. It's usually used for marketing, but once you're done with the marketing, people become clients. It's a way to stay in touch with them, and you can automate that. So someone becomes a member, day 1, they get an email. Day 2, they get an email. And so I have this actually set up. There's 20 emails for this 10-week program. And I got really granular with this, saying, well, every Monday morning at 6 a.m. their time, they're going to get the lesson. Not 6 a.m. my time. I have it set up 6 a.m. their time. So if they're in Australia or if they're in South Africa, they're going to get it 6 a.m. their time on Monday morning. They're not waiting for anybody. And then Wednesday, they're going to get a reminder for our Thursday call. They're going to get it at Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. their time. No matter when they come in the program, it's automated. It's going to be coming from me. And it's a beautiful email. I just had David Short help me make these even better looking. But Elevation, week 7 here. Topic. What's the topic of the week? Leverage and time compression. Overview. Give them an overview of what that week's about. Training video length. It's 24 minutes, 38 seconds. Action steps. Here's what you need to do this week. Time allotted for the exercise. How much time should it take you? Link to the training. And then I have the program information, all the links to their the Facebook group, their weekly action sheet, their live call. How do I get on the live call? When is it? What is the code to get in? Weekly, let's see here. The training area, technical support. Technical support, I bring them back to the Facebook group so they can ask their questions in a group instead of individually to me one-on-one. How do you leverage your time with systems and still maintain a high touch, or people don't feel like I'm out of touch because it's all this automation? As soon as people feel it's all automated and there's no connection there, that's when you've done too much. You need to bring it back up where you're communicating with people more on almost like a one-to-one basis. But this right here eliminated all of my customer service questions. It was all about when are we meeting, what's the password, what's the name of the website where I get in. Those things is in every one of their emails. And here's the last challenge I have here. I'm the only person in the world that can do my long, laborious process. No one else can do what I do. Well, I thought that too, and then I realized there's this thing called Basecamp, or this thing called Reich, and what it is it's it's a management system for all your projects. And so what Reich does is allows me to put down all my steps, everything that I did. So when someone hired me to help them with their YouTube channel, I had about 120 steps. I went step by step. And matter of fact, in each one of these, I said, oh, here's a little screen capture video of me doing it. Watch what I did. Look over my shoulder and see how I did it. And here's exactly what you need to do. You need to schedule 5 videos to be put up in a playlist. You need to, you're going to be writing to your subscribers. And by the way, you're writing as the client, so make sure everything is proper. Make sure you use proper English. This was key to me. It's like you cannot use slang. You need to make sure that you're writing as the client. All right, this is our reputation. It's their reputation too. And then I have YouTube channel optimization checklist, which was like 60 different things on a checklist, and then a YouTube channel optimization process. And I had templates. Everything was there. The reason I did this is because I had a guy doing all of our graphic design. He was excellent. And then he got a job in Hawaii, his dream job, working with Worldwide Wrestling, WWE, I think it was. And he said, guys, I'm out. And so he left. I'm like, we've got projects. We're in the middle of projects. What are we going to do? So I had to bring somebody on. I kept on going back and forth from some, hey, I need those templates so I can keep working on these projects. Finally, he got us the templates. I said, I'm never going to let that happen again. And that also made me think about this, the need to know compartmentalization. If you have open access to everything you do, all of your processes, and someone says, that was great learning all that from you, thank you so much, and now they start doing what you do. They have all your success processes. I learned that from a guy that he was doing my YouTube work, and I gave him everything, and he started doing that for clients, and actually competing against me. And he didn't have the strategy, he had the steps. He didn't have the strategy of how I do what I do, he just had the what. And he's selling it as it's the same as me, but he didn't have the how or the why, he just had the what. I'll do the same as what Matthew did. The compartmentalization says, you need to know this little piece right here. So it doesn't matter what came before you, it doesn't matter what comes after you, just do this little piece here. Here are the templates, here are examples, here's a screen capture of how the person does this. The person before you, or here's how I did it. Everything's right there for them. That person flakes out, I just go get another person and put them in there. They have the same instructions. I was not going to let that happen to me again. I was not going to be caught waiting for someone to let my business move forward. That's just something as a business owner you need to think about that. I can't have someone else being a linchpin in my business, so I'm stuck until they decide to move the business forward. In closing, I just want to say, remember, a system can be simple. Start with having your house clean. Start with having Amazon or another service, Peapod or something like that, deliver your groceries. Why would you go and spend an hour getting your groceries? Because it's a tradition, right? You learned that going shopping with your mother. You've been doing that for 20 years, 40 years. That's what you do. Why would you do anything different? But if you start getting the habit of having someone else do that, you're going to realize, I've got this extra time. Now what do I do with my time? Set up rules in your email. It's really simple. You can use something like unroll.me. Go there and then get out of all the emails that are no longer serving you. Unroll.me. And then you can also set up rules in your email to star stuff. It's like, hey, this is an important email. I need to make sure that I get notice of this right away. And stuff that can just be going to a folder. Set up rules in your email. You can do that easily in Outlook, and I think you can do it with Gmail as well as the Mac Mail. And then live by your calendar. I learned this from one of my mentors by the name of Jeff Krug. He really had me live by my calendar, and me being a free spirit and having to live by a calendar, it was a big transition for me, but I'm so glad I did. Right now I have Google Calendar. I actually have 5 calendars there that I'm sharing with different businesses, different partnerships, family, school calendar, all that stuff is in one calendar, so I can turn it all on, turn off different parts, but I'm living by that calendar. And lastly, tips. When your systems make space in your calendar, fill them with something that's going to expand you or your business. It's very easy to now just chill, to relax, to neglect your business. Make sure you're actively in your business. You're just moving on to the next bigger thing, not you're moving out of doing any business there. Work in your talents. Make sure that you're just doing more of that. And things that aren't in your natural talents but you're good at, it's okay to let them go. Don't automate what you have not tested. Don't make a system and give it to somebody else to start running if you haven't tested it. Make sure it actually works. Make sure that it actually has all the steps, but also make sure that what you're doing is actually going to get the result that you want. And do one thing tonight. How can you have someone do something for you that you're doing if it's manual labor? You'd be surprised how inexpensive you can have it done. And now that frees up your time to do something more that you enjoy, expanding your business, expanding your knowledge by taking another class, something to keep you expanding and moving forward. You will still be needed. Sometimes people feel like, well, if I give things out, what am I going to do? You need to lead. You need to grow your business. You need to be the visionary of your business. You need to be the master communicator of your business. Just because you hand out stuff for people to take your message and put it onto your blog doesn't mean that you have nothing more to say. Just because you have someone doing your emails doesn't mean you never write another email. You need to keep leading your business. You need to keep growing it. You need to keep expanding it. As a CEO, it's your responsibility to be the person who grows that business and lead it. Have the vision that people will want to follow.
Thank you for listening to the Preeminence Podcast. Subscribe to hear powerful interviews and insights each week automatically downloaded the moment they go live. Share this episode with your team, your friends, and post it on social media. Let us know your comments and suggestions for the show at m@ascend.net. That's the letter M @ASYND.net.